They do love you, and they want you to take care of them long after you've quit working, too. So this is why we're talking about retirement now. You know, it's supposed to be a great time in your life when you can finally relax and spend your days however you want. But the truth is, to be able to retire comfortably, you need to be saving right now, maybe 5 years ago. But we're going to help you catch up. John Troncoso, certified financial planner, back with us again today. Thank you for coming by again,
Thanks,
John.
Chris.
All right, let's get to it. How much should we be saving for retirement?
Well, the rule of thumb is that retirees are going to spend anywhere between 50 and 80% of their pre-retirement income. So once you get an estimate of what your expenses are going to be, you want to multiply that number by 20, and that's going to be a very rough estimate. To give you an idea of the averages out there, the average need is about $800,000 of savings for retirement, versus the actual amount of savings for Americans is $133,000. So there's definitely quite a
gap
shortfall
there in what we've saved versus what we would need. And you said multiply by 20 because that's you're estimating you're going to live for 20 years in your retirement, and you'll need that.
Right, and it's just, again, it's a rule of thumb. So really a starting point.
This is giving me a dry throat now just thinking about how I need to play some catch up here. So when should people retire?
Yeah, so there's two considerations there. It's going to be the quantitative and the qualitative. For the quantitative, you want to think, can I live the rest of my life off of what I've saved? And that's going to be a really difficult question to answer, but luckily we can help develop a plan. There's softwares that can give you an estimate of if you're on the right track. And the last thing you want to do is start struggling to make ends meet 10 or 12 years into retirement. The second consideration is qualitative. Think, am I going to be happy retiring now? Which kind of sounds like a silly question, but the statistics indicate that 40% of new retirees are actually dissatisfied with their retirement or are suffering of some sort of depression. And a piece of advice is, if you're going to be away from the workforce for 3 or 4 years, it might be really difficult to go back and work.
Yeah.
So consider phasing into retirement with part-time work.
Gotcha. That makes sense. We had a graphic up on the screen a moment ago that showed suggested saving percentages. That's how much of someone's income they should be putting towards retirement based on how old they are. There it is again.
Right.
What are you setting back there? If you're 35, you should be setting aside 23% of your annual income to retirement?
Exactly right. And there's no one-size-fits-all approach to this. It's going to be the case with everything that we're talking about today. Your personal savings rate is going to depend on when you're retiring, your retirement lifestyle, when you started saving, and how much you've already saved. But that is really indicative of kind of the sooner you start saving, the better off you're going to be. And those numbers include retirement 401k plans, employer matches, IRAs, Roths, and even personal savings.
What are some common mistakes that people make when retirement planning or not planning?
Yeah, I think the most common mistake is retiring too early. And that's, as we said, both quantitative and qualitative, financial and emotional. Not starting to save early enough can really be detrimental. You want to let the power of compounding work in your portfolio as long as possible. Ignoring inflation, so the cost of a can of Coke is going to be much higher 20 years in retirement than it is now.
So you got to pad that in when you're doing that planning.
Exactly
real
right.
quick, last question. When should people start taking Social Security?
Yeah, so again, there's not really a one-size-fits-all here, but generally speaking, the longer you defer taking Social Security, the higher your monthly benefit's going to be. The sooner you start taking Social Security, the lower that benefit's going to be. But broadly speaking, if you're in good health and can afford to forego the income, you want to consider delaying Social Security until age 70, where you're actually going to be getting an 8% increase in your monthly benefits every year you wait.
Gotcha. We got a little pie chart there that kind of shows people, if you're 65 or older, where the sources of your income are coming from. Good advice. Again, it's something we all need to think about. We all need to be looking at if you have a job now and your employer does a 401k match, get to at least that level where you're, you're taking advantage of the money that the company's willing to give you as well. And if you have any questions, you can always call a certified financial planner. They'll be glad to help you out. Thanks, John.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Linda?
Good stuff. Thanks, Chris. Coming up, you'll soon be able to book a stay in the Goodyear blimp.